Hi viewers, I'm Shidarta from the Business Law Department of Binus University, Jakarta, Indonesia. With me is Professor Stefan Koos from Bundeswehr University in Munich, Germany.
Hello.
Currently, I'm connected to him through an online network. We want to discuss a very interesting topic today, and that topic is also a concern of many people in all over the world. That is about coronavirus. We will link this topic to the issue of human rights. How far could the fundamental right be limited in the corona crisis? How do emergency constitution in Indonesia and Germany deal with the situation?
Stefan, to this day, the situation in Indonesia has not yet improved. How about in Germany?
Well, in Germany we have maybe a quite realistic view because we tested a lot from the beginning. But the situation is like that the numbers of the infected people is still growing much, but it seems to flatten a little bit due to the very strict restrictions of the personal freedom of the people, which is part of the competence of the federal states. And my federal state, Bavaria, is not allowing to go out a part of you have to go to work or you have to buy something. So we all stay at home if possible.
There is a very worrying situation happening at this time in Indonesia. On Tuesday, March 31st, President Joko Widodo declared a public health emergency. The president ruled out any form of lockdown at the regency or provincial levels. He said that regional heads should not make policies of their own. All policies in the region must be in accordance with the existing regulation. President Joko Widodo still believes social distancing still as the best option in the meantime. If we refer to the Constitution, then clearly there is a statement that everyone has the right to get a sense of security. Every person has the right to live in prosperity physically and mentally, to live and set a good and healthy living environment, and the right to obtain health services. How about the regulation in German Constitution?
Well, the German Constitution is, of course, caring for the welfare of the people, but we don't have clear rules on limitation or on the limits of fundamental rights in case of emergency. There is not even a clear separation between the emergency case and the normal case. The reason is historical, because in the first democracy in Germany, in the Weimar democracy, before the Second World War, emergency rules and emergency legislation was misused and helped the National Socialists to come to power. So after the World War, the fathers of the Constitution did not want to have this. So we have certain rules since 1968. We had some rights, student rights in that time, and then came certain rules which belong mostly to the organization of the state. So there is this solidarity between the federal state and the federal republic, and there is certain aspects to take over power from the central government from the federal states. In the fundamental rights, it is discussed when is this emergency and when is it normal. In the moment we have emergency and we have a government who is trying to keep the limitations low, but due to the missing clear legislative separation, there is some discussion whether that could be maybe misused in the future. So this is so basically the limits of the fundamental rights are the immanent limits of fundamental rights, and also there is the guarantee that the essential of a fundamental right should not be taken away. And we are on that point maybe soon, because it is belonging to the personal freedom of the citizen. So it must be strictly limited to the emergency case. But if the emergency case is not clearly defined, it's a quite dangerous situation.
Yeah. I think it also happened in Indonesia. the formulation of human rights in the constitution is still very general and does not reach all universal regulations. For this reason, Indonesia has ratified various international conventions. For example, International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, or ICCPR. This covenant has been ratified by Indonesian law number 12 of 2005. According to this law, Stefan, foreigners who are legally present in the territory of a covenant member country may only be expelled based on decision made in accordance with the law. There were several cases, such as tourists from China who were expelled in West Sumatra. There were also Chinese workers who were rejected when they landed in Southeast Sulawesi. The law on ratification of civil and political rights also guarantees the rights of everyone to carry out mobility from one place to another. However, for the reason of emergencies, this right of mobility can be restricted only by the state. Yes.
Yeah, this is belonging to the foreigners also, yeah, because this is an international problem, right? Because discrimination between foreigners and non-foreigners is something very usual, yeah. So this happens very often. In the moment we have thousands, around 10,000 German citizens in New Zealand, for example, who cannot leave the country. Because of the strict regulations of New Zealand, there is no aircraft landing allowed. No aircraft can leave New Zealand. So our army cannot, and the government cannot take these people back. So this is an international problem. Apart of that, we have certain rules for this case in the European Convention on Human Rights. For the citizens and generally, which is not differentiating between citizens and non-citizens, the Article 15 of the European Convention on Human Rights is giving strict temporary limits to all limits to and suspension of fundamental rights. So very strict limits, clear information duty to the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, and certain fundamental rights cannot be suspended, like the right of life, the prohibition of torture, prohibition of slavery, and nulla pena sine lege. But the personal freedom can be maybe suspended, yeah, and this is immanent in the Constitution, immanent in the fundamental right theory, if the danger for the people is making it necessary. Again, the problem is the definition, how long it is necessary. So maybe I can add a little sociological aspect. If we see the surveys nowadays, around 90% of the German citizens are in favor of all these suspensions and limits of the fundamental rights in the moment, and a significant part of the citizens even demand stricter rules, such as switch off or some suspension of the data protection by using obligatory apps with tracking and these things. So the citizens themselves demand suspension of fundamental right. This is a big danger for the situation of the fundamental right, because due to this missing definition, a state or the authorities could maybe excessively interpret it, and there would be no contradiction by the population.
Yes, I think the situation is almost the same here, because the problem is that Indonesia now has never faced an emergency situation. So what indicators are not easy to determine. The exodus of residents ahead of the Eid al-Fitr will be a major problem as well in the near future. Here we see that the right to mobility no longer absolutely exists in emergency situation. Because, however, if there are people who violate the prohibition of traveling, the legal instruments in Indonesia are apparently not quite ready to overcome the violation.
Yeah, I think the problem in Indonesia is a little bit the control of these things, right? I mean, let's see the lockdown, or let's see this prohibition to exit from home in a country where the culture is more in the public and not so much at home, where many people live very close to each other. If we see certain quarters of Jakarta, for example, it is very, very difficult to keep the people at home. The situation is totally different from the situation in Europe, where the people, due to the cold time in the year, anyway have the tradition to stay at home and to cook at home and to have their middle point of life at home. It's very difficult to control that. This travel ban in Indonesia is at least better to control, because you have a central regulation by Indonesia, and the provinces have not that autonomy. We have the strong federalism, and it depends on the federal state whether it is allowed to travel or not. Here are still federal states which are very liberal, and other federal states close down the whole state, like Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. Generally and in total, I would nevertheless say that the federalism is a good thing here. Decentral handling of the crisis may be a good thing, but the situation, the basic situation, is totally different from Indonesia. So I don't know how how Indonesia want to control the masses and stop that movements. Right? This is very dangerous. This is why I also was wondering how India can do that like this. India is even worse, right? India is a very a country where a lot of homeless people living in the street. How to control this? The Mr. President of India was making this rule within 4 hours, closing down everything within 4 hours. The people could not buy any food anymore, nothing, because they are afraid that people would go to the shop and sell and buy everything out, right? Very different. So I wonder that how it works with that exodus.
Yes. Let's see what happened, and hopefully we can overcome this situation.
Okay, Stefan, I think that is our discussion for this time. We will continue in the next session with other topics.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.